Good evening, Who Dat Nation, and happy Wednesday, Bayou Blitz family. I hope everybody is doing well out there. I know most of the country is in a deep freeze and or awaiting yet another blizzard. I know we are up here. So if you are in one of those affected areas, stay warm, stay safe. And on that note, I am Bob Rose. I am one of your co-hosts to your Bayou Blitz podcast. Joining me on the other side of the screen is my partner, my friend, and my co-host, Brendan Boylan. Happy Wednesday, Brendan.
Yeah, happy Wednesday to you. Hopefully everybody's doing well. I know that we here in Charlotte are expecting, which I wouldn't consider it a blizzard, but people down here consider it an upcoming blizzard, looking at somewhere between potential 2 and 3 inches of snow next week. So for us, a lot. For other parts of the country, you're just like, that's not anything. But yeah, those who are going to be affected by some winter weather. I don't know what the winter storm name is. I'm not that cool and up to date with things. But you guys
look, hurricanes and typhoons are the only things that should be named. So yeah, the winter weather names and slight windstorm names. Bullshit. Get off my lawn.
There's Bob. Headline: Old man yelling at cloud. Just kidding. But hopefully you guys are staying warm and safe. Hopefully you guys enjoyed a little bit of a change up with the intro. It's time to be silly. Silly season is among us, as it's the off season. We get to be silly and try out a couple different things. Shout out LeAngelo Ball for his new single that hit the Billboard top 30. Who would have thought? But look, man, for whatever you guys think, $13 million deal with Def Jam after an independent single that was on a stream. Like, here's my turn to sound old. These kids are crazy that they can hop on a popular streamer's website and all of a sudden become a rapper. Like, that's insane. But shout out Jello.
To each their own. I mean, it doesn't adversely affect my life. I can't see it adversely affecting the lives of many. So I got no problem with it.
Look, good for him, I guess. I wish somebody just threw me on their stream and then offered me a $13 million contract for something. We stream once a week.
Right.
What happened to us?
Right. Not only that, but I mean, I keep teasing a potential Bayou Blitz OnlyFans page, a yearly calendar. The offers are out there, folks. We're just waiting for the best bidder.
Or any bidder.
Or any bidder, yeah.
But we have plenty to talk about when it comes to the New Orleans Saints this week. There's been a couple things in the news. There's been rumors. There's been quotes. There's been, there's a birthday today. Happy birthday, Drew Brees. Happy 46th birthday to the greatest New Orleans Saint of all time. So, Bob, I'm going to let you kind of steer the ship as we have had for the last few weeks. You and I kind of have we have a board of different things we can talk about. No particular order. We've been calling them stream of consciousness episodes. And that's kind of where we like to be this time of year. Don't like to be as structured or this or that. Just want to talk about whatever's on each other's minds. I had a couple longer rants last week, which is different. That was fun. So today, where would you like to kind of start the conversation? I'll let you steer the ship. There's a lot of ways we can go.
Well, and I feel like the more lengthy conversation tonight is going to be about Mickey Loomis, his comments at his end-of-year press conference, along with all the Saints coaching candidates kind of lumped together, our favorites, our most logical choices, etc. So before we get into any and all of that, the biggest news Saints related of the week are three things really. One, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because I just think it's ridiculous, and another national media member blindfolding himself and throwing darts at a dartboard. But Sam Darnold is named as the New Orleans Saints rather are named as a possible destination for Sam Bradford in free agency, or Sam Darnold, excuse me.
I was like,
wow, sorry.
We're really turning clock.
Right. And with that, with that sentence, Sam Bradford just got injured again too. So, uh, the Sam Darnold, there are going to be rumors about it because he's going to be an available quarterback. No, not going to happen. And that's not just me saying it's not going to happen because I don't want it to happen. That's me saying that the Saints would have had to absolutely positively lose their mind for it to happen. It's going to be a rumor. It's one that I addressed in an article that I'm going to publish tomorrow morning, but it ain't going to happen. Sam Darnold is garbage. And I know you ABC people, the anybody but Carr people, are saying, oh, Sam Darnold could be an upgrade over Carr. No, absolutely not. Have you watched the man play like ever? He had an aberration of a season. Came crashing back to earth. The real Sam Darnold is the Sam Darnold that has played for the Minnesota Vikings the last 2 weeks. 8 turnovers, 1 touchdown. And I'm talking, he threw it was a touchdown pass, but I mean 1 touchdown for the Minnesota Vikings offense in the last 2 weeks. That's the real Sam Darnold, folks. The only advantage he has over Derek Carr is age. Turns 28 this offseason. Carr turns 34. That's it. Other than that, it's a term I've used a lot lately. It's they're both pick the name out of the hat guy, sigh, and go on with life as best you can. Sam Darnold is definitely not an upgrade over Derek Carr. In fact, I would make a strong argument that you're going in reverse because hypothetically, if the Saints cut Derek Carr, they would still face a major cap hit. And you're going to eat that cap hit while signing a quarterback who is no better than the one that you have dealt with the last 2 years, paying him at least as much money, if not more, because of the market. So that's rumor number 1. Rumor number 2, Mike McCarthy is now available after his contract. He was not fired. His contract with the Dallas Cowboys expired yesterday without it being renewed. McCarthy has officially interviewed with the Chicago Bears already. He is expected to interview with the New Orleans Saints tomorrow. I wrote about Mike. I'm now including him in the 8 official candidates that the Saints have interviewed or are about to interview. He's the oldest of all the candidates that the Saints have talked to. 61 years old. But folks were coming at me, saying ridiculous stuff like, well, he doesn't fit the culture in New Orleans. Really? Because he was the Saints offensive coordinator for 5 years under general manager Randy Mueller, who's now back with the team in an official capacity. In 2006, there were a lot of reports that McCarthy, not Sean Payton, was the team's first choice as head coach to replace Jim Haslett. McCarthy ultimately accepted the job, of course, with the Green Bay Packers. The Saints lucked out, I guess, with Sean Payton. The general manager at the time, Mickey Loomis. So someone somewhere thinks that Mike McCarthy is a fit for the New Orleans culture, whatever the hell critics meant by that. McCarthy can't win, really. 608 career winning percentage, 12 playoff teams, 3-12. In fact, he had Dak Prescott healthy for 3 full seasons. Those 3 full seasons, he went 12-5. You can criticize McCarthy for awful playoff performances, even worse clock management, and I agree with both those things, but don't tell me the guy can't win in the regular season. Stagnant offenses. The best offenses in Saints franchise history pre-Drew Brees, Sean Payton, were under Mike McCarthy as offensive coordinator between 2000 and 2004. Of that, there can be no argument. He helped develop Aaron Brooks. Joe Horn had the best years of his career. Deuce McAllister had the best years of his career. Dante Stallworth had the best years of his career. Willie Jackson, great offensive line anchored by Willie Rofe and Kyle Turley. Yeah, the guy can coach offenses, and I'm not even going to get into what he did, with the Packers offenses and the Cowboys offense. Another argument. Well, he couldn't win with an elite roster in Dallas. Elite roster. CeeDee Lamb. He's not elite in my book, but a lot of people would consider him. So, okay. Micah Parsons, definitely elite. Diggs, the cornerback, probably elite. Dak Prescott, not elite, but a household name. Outside of that, name me 3 players. They don't even have to be decent players, but name me 3 players on the Dallas Cowboys roster. Many people cannot do it. My point there is Dallas had a mediocre roster at best outside of the stars that everybody knows. McCarthy only won 1 Super Bowl. Well, so did Sean Payton. So by that ridiculous logic, Andy Reid is the only qualified coach in America now. Only NFL qualified coach. So that's my take on Mike McCarthy. You want to read a little bit more about it? I have it posted on the Saints News Network in my personal pages. I did that 2 days ago. And the third and final rumor, and then I'll jump off my soapbox for you, Brendan. Saints offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak has been given the green light to interview with other teams. Folks, this is not surprising. All the Saints assistants have the freedom to interview with other teams. Kubiak's just a little bit of a hot name right now. He was rumored to be a candidate in Cleveland before Cleveland, I believe it was yesterday, promoted Tommy Rees to offensive coordinator. Clint did interview in Seattle for their OC job, and where a lot of us are hearing that he's the front runner up there. So we'll see what happens with that. Of course, we will keep you posted as we know anything. Clint Kubiak, Mike McCarthy, and the ridiculous Sam Darnold rumor. Those are the 3 newsworthy events for the New Orleans Saints this week.
McCarthy was one of the 3 names I gave you at the end of last week's episode. Yeah, like to everything you said, McCarthy has more career wins than Sean Payton. Both have a Super Bowl. I want to say McCarthy's an 11 in the playoffs, which isn't great.
He is. You're right.
But it's not bad. A guy that, as you alluded to, has a history in New Orleans, albeit different coaching staff, some different members of the front office. But a guy that I think, regardless of how you feel about him as being your next head coach, you'd be really silly to not at least bring him in and talk to him.
Right, and that was exactly my point too. Is he my personal favorite? No. Not that I'm the one doing the hiring and firing, but like you said, you're foolish to not to at least consider him. I get that a lot of people want Aaron Glenn or Joe Brady or fill-in name here, but you really think the Saints are going to go out and just talk to 1 or 2 people? Even if they're the ones that they're interested in, what if those 1 or 2 people decide, oh, I like the Jets better, or I like the Jaguars better, or I like the Bears better? The Saints are doing their due diligence, which, by the way, is what a lot of us wanted them to do when they fired Dennis Allen in the first place. So they're checking off that box on paper, at least.
Yeah, and you have to. This is the first time since 2005, 2006, where the team is really going through the whole process of finding a new head coach. Now, you guys, what I mean by that is Dennis Allen was an in-house hire. Mm-hmm. It seemed like the logical thing from the jump. I mean, we were publishing things at that time with Saints News Network about how it was the logical thing to do. It made the most sense. That was the first time they're really having to look from outside and not just have an in-house promotion, if you will. So, yeah, I'm glad that they're doing their due diligence. You brought up other teams, so I guess we'll hit this rumor as well, and that's the Aaron Glenn rumor, that the Jets are his preferred destination. We talked a little bit about Aaron last week, and you and I both agree that whether it's in New Orleans or elsewhere, Aaron Glenn is going to be a good NFL head coach, or at least we believe he's going to be, based on his track record. Obviously, spending a long time in the NFL as a player, spending a long time on different staffs and different capacities in New Orleans, and then now with the Detroit Lions as the defensive coordinator. The praise that he has got from former players. I know P.J. Williams went out on social media and called him the best coach that he ever had. I know Delvin Breaux, the times that we've talked to him, Delvin has been very vocal on, what Aaron Glenn has meant to his career as well. So there's plenty of that to be backed up. I think he's going to be an excellent head coach. The rumor is that he would prefer to go to the New York Jets. When we talked last week, I went out and said, I don't want Aaron Glenn, but that had nothing to do with Aaron Glenn. It had everything to do with Sean Payton and what I've called the ghost of Sean Payton.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think the news stung a little bit more than I thought it would. It's a rumor. Rumors are rumors. We don't know 100% for sure. I don't have the ability to call Aaron right now and just ask. If one of you do, that would be great. Go ahead and do it for us. But I was like, dang. And I think it was more of that because we've preached it all off season. Like, we know it. It's one of those things where you can say it out loud, you can be aware of it, but until it happens, it doesn't really hit you that way. And what I'm alluding to is that the Saints are not they're not the team that coaches are flocking to go to. It's not an attractive job anymore. And that pains me a little bit because for as long as I've covered this team, it's been an attractive place for free agents. It's been an attractive place for coordinators. And now all of a sudden, after what's been a really good run of it for New Orleans, it's not an attractive job anymore. It's not an attractive place to go play anymore, at least, with the current roster. It's a complete 180 from what I'm used to as a member of the New Orleans media. So hearing that kind of stung a little bit because naturally you're like, well, Aaron played here, he coached here. We have to be at least the number one on his board, right? No, because it's not an attractive job anymore.
Well, and I agree with nearly everything that you said. But I think Nick Shook was one of them. So I just rolled my eyes at it. No, it was the NBC quote unquote reporter that wrote the piece that New Orleans is the least attractive destination available. Have you looked at the mess that is the New York Jets?
That is true.
Have you looked at the front office mess that is the Chicago Bears? How about the Raiders, man? Is there a more dysfunctional franchise maybe ever in the last 10 to 15 years? Yeah.
You're in Vegas. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how much that really plays to head coaches. Maybe players, but I don't know about coaches.
Well, an ego, a head coach driven by ego, and a narcissistic one. And as much as I love Sean Payton, for example, Sean Payton was both New York, Chicago, Vegas. Those are certainly more attractive markets than New Orleans. In my opinion, that's the only thing that the Jets and the Raiders have going for them over the New Orleans Saints. The Bears you can look at. If you like Caleb Williams as a quarterback, you can say, okay, I have my franchise quarterback. I have a lot of young pieces on offense and defense to build around. On paper, I could see a coach being attracted to Chicago, but New York, what do they have really? And next to nothing. And the report that you're referring to, and the reason why I didn't bring it up, among my top 3 rants. Was because you know who has that report? Bleacher Report. Need I say more about those ridiculous fools? And Aaron Glenn might end up with the New York Jets. But my theory is that Bleacher Report, and we know the kind of lazy half-ass job of reporting that Bleacher Report has done, even for the New Orleans Saints over the years. Bleacher Report is saying this behind the logic that, and of course they're saying, people tell us, sources tell us, but of course they don't name sources because they have none. the logic behind it is Aaron Glenn played his first, I believe, 8 years with the New York Jets. He was a number one draft choice. He's still among their career leaders in interceptions and passes broken up, et cetera. All that's true, but I think it's telling when Aaron Glenn retired, and his last year as a player was with the New Orleans Saints. But then he was one of those many players that uh, that leaves a team, signs with another team just to retire with that team. Aaron Glenn did that, but he didn't do it with the New York Jets. He did it with the Houston Texans. So if that tells you where Aaron Glenn's loyalties laid, at least at that time, it certainly wasn't with the New York Jets. So, just like the early reports this offseason about, Mickey Loomis is going to hire someone that he knows because the last person he hired, he knew. Lazy half-ass reporting. And that's what I think that this is. Again, I'm not saying that Aaron Glenn will not end up with the New York Jets. What I am saying is I don't believe that it's a foregone conclusion.
That's fair. You're absolutely right about Bleacher. I think of everything that, and this is not a Bleacher Report rant, right? But I think one of the things that really gets me about Bleacher Report is, dare I say, 80, 90% of their articles are these like hypothetical, like mock trades and mock drafts and this and that.
Which is fine, except for the fact that they pass it off as actual news and not predictions, projections, or editorials.
Correct. And it's not journalism. Like, that's stuff that I would be doing at like a high school lunch table.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey guys, like what if this team traded for this guy? Or, how can we make this team better? You know what I did in college for fun? Like, we would go and we'd like load up Madden, me and a group of guys, right? We'd load up Madden, or we'd load up 2K, or we'd load up whatever sports game you want. And it's like, how can we make this team better? Right? Like, we're not going to turn the trade sliders on. Like, we're going to keep everything the way it is. We're going to make it extremely difficult. But, like, realistically and logically, like, you can't just add Patrick Mahomes to your team and trade away all your first-round picks. Like, how do we make this team better, right? That's what those articles are. I did that in college for 4 years on video games. If I just documented all of it, Bob, maybe I'd be rich. Who knows?
You'd be head of Bleacher Report. We know that much.
Well, I missed opportunities. Missed opportunities. And with that, let's talk about missed opportunities in the 2024 NFL regular season for the Saints and what we viewed as missed opportunities and what Mickey Loomis maybe didn't. So this is a fun segment that we're going to continue from last week that we call Brendan Boylan, Public Relations Expert and Advice. Last week, we had Derek Carr. This week, we have Mickey Loomis. Bob, I'm going to start with one or two quotes. If you want to pull up a couple more, we can kind of just back and forth all of this. But I think I'm going to start at the head of the snake, if you will, with the biggest and most, I don't even know what I want to call it, confusing. It was a lot of, it was like a word soup, I think is a good way to describe it because it was talking in circles.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the one that got the most media attention. So that's where I want to start, here at the head of the snake. This is from Mickey himself, but it was tweeted out by our friend and our colleague, John Hendricks. This is a quote from Mickey Loomis earlier. Quote, I understand that. The results are the results, and you can't ignore the results. But you also have to look beyond the results sometimes and understand the reasons behind the symptoms, end quote. Well, there's a couple things that are wrong with this one. All right, the first one is the back half of that, you literally said when you fired Dennis Allen. You got to look past the results, right? And you remember how pissed off people were about that? Remember how infuriating to hear that was? You have to look past the results. How many weeks and months we used that to joke around on this show? So the first thing is, if I'm PR guy for Mickey Loomis, before he even walks in there, it's like, look, Mickey, there's just one thing we cannot say today. And it is not the F word. By all means, say the F word if you so
blast away.
The one thing I can't have you say is we have to look past the results. Like, number one, I need you to take that phrase, delete it from your brain. All right? We're not saying that one. So that's where it starts.
Well, and let's piggyback off of that. I mean, he went on to say and I'm paraphrasing the quote a little bit here, sadly not much. He went on to say, off of that, the results were not what we wanted, but that doesn't mean we were doing anything wrong.
Yes.
What? Now, I acknowledge that a lot of what he said, fans, because Mickey Loomis is in their crosshairs, and rightfully so right now, fans just wanted to jump all over every single word. So I get that. But the reality is that a lot of what Mickey Loomis said is GM speak, coach speak, very politically correct. Of course, you're not going to trash Dennis Allen. You're not going to trash this player or that player. Throw them under the bus, anything like that. So I get that part. But when you arrogantly double down on the results quote that you threw out there, and then go on to say, but we weren't doing anything wrong either, then why the heck did you go 5-12 and we're arguably the worst team in the NFL for a long stretch this season? That's my follow-up question.
Yeah, well, my follow-up question would be like, well, if you didn't necessarily do anything wrong, like, what did you do right? Right? Because you lost 7 in a row. You fired your head coach. That doesn't sound like you were doing a whole lot of things right either. Now, so for the Brendan Boylan PR school, it's just saying things didn't go our way this year. Some of it can be blamed on injuries, however you want to word that, right? But you can't just say, well, but we didn't do anything wrong. That's like, I don't know. How drastic of an example do we want here? We'll have a not so dramatic and a very dramatic, right? That's how we're going to go. So the least dramatic one would be like, I don't know, Will comes home in about 5 years and he failed the test. And he goes, and you go, Will, did you study for the test? And he's like, no. But I didn't do anything wrong. I just got the F. Right? So that's like the very, like, the high side of that is, very dramatic is, I don't know, maybe you're an accountant, right? You're an accountant, you're working at your accounting firm or whatever accounting job you have, and you get a fishy email, right? And a fishy invoice for like $5 million. And you, as the accountant for whatever job you have, you're like, this looks like a legit invoice. Sends $5 million. And you actually sent $5 million to the prince of whatever country. And your boss comes in and goes, what the hell? Why did you send $5 million? Like, now we're broke. Like, we file for bankruptcy. And you're like, yeah, but I didn't necessarily do anything wrong. So that, like, it comes across, you almost want to look at somebody and just be like, are you stupid? You won 5 games this year, and your response is, well, we didn't do anything wrong. Okay. Elaborate. Like, that's kind of where you want to go. My thing with the initial is that he admits that the results are the results. Thumbs up, okay? You admit that what the record is the record. And it wasn't good. But then he continues and says, Well, and then it says you can't ignore them. It's like, okay, great. You're admitting fault. You're admitting it was a bad season and that we can't ignore them. But you also have to look beyond them and understand the reason by the symptoms, which he's saying you have to understand the reason why the results are what they are.
Of that, if you just take that statement, I don't disagree with that. And here's why. The reason why the results are what they were is because of the bad decisions that you made, the not right decisions that you were making. Those are the symptoms.
Right. So if you literally just remove the one thing that I told him before he walked into the press conference not to say, the whole thing makes sense to say the results are the results. You can't ignore the results, but it is important to try to diagnose why that happened. Perfect. A plus Mickey Loomis. Why the hell did you have to say, but you have to look past it? So that was infuriating. One, maybe we don't get as infuriated here. I'm trying to pull them up as we speak. I know you have some other ones on the top of your head potentially, but like Mickey was asked about Derek Carr. He was asked about Spencer Rattler. This is it. Yep, this is the other one we got to talk about. Absolutely. Thank you to Trace on X Twitter who put this out there. Mickey Loomis's response to why the Saints are a good coaching destination, right? And I'm not going to sit here and give the whole quote. And I'll look it up word for word, but just to kind of start the conversation. Mickey's response to that felt very much like, well, we're one of 32 teams in the NFL, so like that's why. So Bob, you care to kind of elaborate on that as a full quote?
I like most of the press conference, that quote, it was just dripping with arrogance, and arrogance for no reason. That's literally like saying, we're a good job because we're a job. There is a little bit of truth to that. There are only 32 head coaching jobs in the National Football League. So I get, okay, 31. I don't count whoever works for Jerry Jones. So yeah, I mean, there is, I guess, a little bit of something to that. But when you're coming across as that arrogant and you're in competition with 6 other teams for a rather short list of head coaching candidates, that's your video interview. I realize you're saying different things to, the Aaron Glenns and the Mike McCarthys and the Cliff Kingsburys and whoever else you're interviewing. You're saying, you're going into complete elaboration in those interviews as opposed to, just answering a press conference, answering a question in a press conference. So I get that. But to just say we're one of 32 teams and then just drop it at that, who the hell do you think you are? Okay, you've answered that. You're one of 32 teams. But again, from a PR standpoint, just a little bit of elaboration. To my recollection, Mickey Loomis did not use the phrase or a related phrase to, we know we need to improve. We're constantly looking for improvements. And we're going to evaluate in an attempt to improve. To my recollection, none of those statements or anything related to it was made. So again, just dripping with arrogance. And we're not talking about a 5-12 team here where the bottom just freakishly dropped out one year. Like you look at the Rams. The Rams have been pretty much a perennial playoff team since Sean McVay has arrived. They've had one a horrible season. I believe it was 5-12. And another year where they missed the playoffs. But outside of that, they're in the playoffs year in and year out. We're not talking about the Saints in that way anymore. We're not talking about, okay, you went 13-4 this year, 11-6, 12-5, and you're always either in the playoffs or winning your division, and then all of a sudden, injuries, some bad play, and just a freak occurrence. But we look to get the ship back on track. No. This has been a rapid downward trend since first Breeze, then Peyton quit. A rapid downward trend where the bottom just completely fell out. The type of day that a lot of us, frankly, have been waiting for. And you're going to counter with we know we need to get younger. We know we need to draft better. We know we need to do a better job of talent evaluation. We're one of 32 jobs. Of course we're desirable. My God.
Here's the thing, man, and to everything you just said, even if you're a team that's like consistently in the playoffs, that is not a good thing to be throwing out, because it doesn't make you seem arrogant. It makes you think that makes it come across as if you're higher and better than everybody. At the end of the day, you have to come up with something better. And yes, you're on the spot. You can't look at your PR person like this. But you have to come up with something like, well, we're a desirable job because of the history that we have here, the program that we've built here, the culture that we have instilled throughout the last however many years.
Mm-hmm.
The last few seasons have not been the most fortunate for us. The ball hasn't bounced our way because of injuries, whatever. But look, we have a quarterback that we really believe in, because Mickey stated how much confidence he already has in Derek Carr. So you can build off of all that, right? You can build off the leadership and the team captains and the Camaras and the DeMario Davises and the Cam Jordans. You can sit and you can point at some of the younger talent, which he did.
Mm-hmm.
But to just come out and be like, well, yeah, it's a job and we're available, so, got to be desirable. Not the way to go about that. I think we could sit here and we could nitpick a lot of things.
Sure.
I do want to get on just a couple more, and then we can kind of just be done with the nitpicking. Because at the end of the day, we are nitpicking. I wasn't very impressed by anything that he said, but you could just be like, well, I'm not very impressed by this and move on. But that's no fun, and it's not our job. Our jobs are to nitpick and be like, Mickey, did you do enough drugs this morning before you got into this press conference? Because nothing you're saying is making any sense at all, right? That is our job. That is why we critique, and that is why we nitpick. One of the other things I want to nitpick was particularly some of it's what he said in the press conference. Some of it is what came out a little bit later. Maybe it was before, in terms of Dennis Allen and some of the reporting on that as well. So I'm going to start with the Mickey Loomis statement, and then we'll go into some of the reports. Mickey was asked about the firing of Dennis Allen. He said, quote, "I don't want to get into that other than it was an organization decision. I'm a part of the organization." He continued and said, quote, "I could have probably done a better job of supporting Dennis in a few areas, but I don't want to go into specifics," end quote. That was very vague, which is fine. And actually, PR-wise, you actually get an A there for being vague about it. The problem that I have, not even from a PR standpoint, but from a standpoint if I'm a fan, is the very first sentence or two of that. It was an organization's decision, and I'm a part of the organization. I don't think I would have been as bothered by that if I didn't know about what kind of came out a little bit later. And what came out later was a report. I want to say it was Fox. I'm trying to pull it up as we speak. It was with Jay Glazer with Fox on his podcast. Dennis Allen telling Jay Glazer that Mickey entered the office, closed the door, and said, "Let's talk." The Monday following the Panthers' loss here in Charlotte, and said Loomis was, quote, "not really in favor of this move," end quote.
Which we knew and reported at that time as well.
Which we did. But to have that come from the horse, like, it's one of those things. It comes from the horse's mouth at this point. And so the frustrating part with that is taking that into context, that podcast airing on the 8th, and then Mickey Loomis's end-of-year presser being the 12th, I believe, if my days are right.
I think so, yeah.
The problem with all of that is, okay, Dennis goes on this podcast, and then just 3 or 4 days later, you're saying, well, it was an organizational decision, and I'm a part of the organization. So you are reconfirming that you did not want to move on from Dennis Allen. Which, you know what? On one hand, you could be like, fine. There are things that happen at my job that I don't agree with every day. And that's the case for most people. But you are the general manager of this franchise. You are a guy that is supposed to sit in front of these cameras at press conferences with the uttermost confidence in having the back of everyone else in the organization. You didn't directly throw anybody under the bus there. But directly. I don't want to say you did it passive-aggressively, but it was this subtle little reminder that you didn't want that. You know, I can deal with that in smaller companies. I can deal with little subtle things like that in my day-to-day job. I'm sure you can too. I'm sure a lot of you listening and watching can deal with little subtle things like that from your bosses or whatever, reminding you that, hey, they really didn't agree with what you did. But you were the general manager of a franchise that is worth billions of dollars. Right? You are second in command here. Right? Behind Gail Benson, you are second in command. And what you just did wasn't just a reflection and showing not support for all the people that work under you. It is more than anything reminding the person that is your direct boss, the owner of the franchise, that you didn't agree with her decision.
Yeah.
And that doesn't sit well with me. Because in any good, well-run sports organization, or really any organization in anything for that matter, you may not always agree with what's coming from the top. But by God, you guys are in unison and you guys understand and you have each other's backs. And this did not seem like a move where you had each other's back. And if my boss or my GM did that to me, it wouldn't sit well.
No.
And rest his soul, you know my former boss, or knew my former boss, or sales manager in my position. If I ever did that to him, he would have been pissed. And rightfully so. It just doesn't sit. The guy is already on the hot seat, maybe not with the organization, right? But with the fan base. It does not sit well with me. To do something like
honestly,
that, you might have overlooked it, but that's something that really stuck out to me.
Because of the way he answered that question. He should be on the hot seat with Gail Benson. Otherwise, you really have to question what the hell she's thinking. At least that's my take on it. I didn't have a big problem with a lot of what Mickey Loomis said about Dennis Allen. And I mean, here's why. Again, you're not going to throw the guy under the bus. He's already fired. Point made that Dennis Allen was one of the many things wrong with this organization. Not only this year but the last several years. So I mean, there's no reason to throw him under the bus. Mickey Loomis, we know you love Dennis Allen. That much was clear before, and was just solidified, cemented, by these comments. But even if, okay, we know you didn't want to fire him. At least you don't think you ever want to fire your friend, because that's a life-changing event to be fired from any job, really. So we know you didn't want to fire him, but to not have the accountability to sit up there and say, we the organization, we as the organization knew that changes needed to be made, whether we like doing it or not, for the sake of improving the team and the direction that we want to go in. And this was not the direction that we liked being in. You say something like that, not literally throwing everybody else but yourself under the bus by saying, well, it was an organizational decision and I'm part of the organization. You'd have been better off from a PR standpoint. And frankly, if I'm working under you, as you said, or I'm your boss and there's only one above them in the organization, that particular comment is what would chafe my ass from there on out. And again, if it didn't, and we don't know whether it did or didn't, if it didn't chafe, especially Gail's butt, then what the hell is she thinking? It was one of the, and again, I didn't take personal offense to every single little word that Mickey Loomis said, unlike a lot of Saints fans, because he is in their crosshairs right now. But that was one of the, just like you, Brendan, that was one of the particular statements that I was like, arrogance, lack of accountability, and almost delusional were the three words that popped into my head with that statement and the results conversation from before.
I think the biggest thing for me from all of it is, and particularly that, you don't say something like that, and some of the things that he said in general throughout his end of year press conference, you don't say some of that stuff unless you feel that you're untouchable almost. And like, I can do and say whatever I want, and there's no consequences or repercussions for my actions. That's what I got. And remember, Bob and I have talked about it plenty over the last however many weeks, maybe months at this point. Loomis is listed in Tom Benson's will. Should anything happen to Gail, it is Mickey who should and supposed to step up and oversee the franchise, which makes it extremely difficult to fire, let go. And you got to believe Mickey knows that at this point. And knows that you're almost untouchable.
Yeah, I mean, people have suggested when I've thrown statements out like that, people have suggested, wills can be changed. I mean, even Tom Benson changed his will, to alter, his family trust, very infamously, as a matter of fact. So yeah, I'm aware wills can be changed, but who do you think sits on in a very high position, if not the highest position, on the Benson Board of Trustees? Mickey Loomis. So if you change that will, it ain't going to be easy to do. and it's going to be very ugly, probably at least as ugly as the Benson family feud was before. So yeah, it's possible to do, but it is Gale, and we have no idea. We're just throwing out speculation at this point. Is Gale just taking the path of least resistance? By saying, yeah, Mickey, you're untouchable. Everybody knows you're untouchable. You obviously feel the need to let everybody know that you're untouchable with these statements and actions and lack of action. Again, you got to wonder.
I'll close our Mickey Loomis conversation here with quarterbacks. Not necessarily anything he said or didn't say, but he did say that he still has a lot of belief, and full belief, really, in Carr. From a PR standpoint, A+, thumbs up. That is the
Carr's your Carr's your quarterback under contract. You're probably needing to restructure him to create salary cap space. Again, this is something that fans took umbrage with, but from a politically correct standpoint, you really shouldn't say anything other than that.
Yeah, said the right thing. So, good job. When asked about Spencer Rattler, he said you can see the arm talent, you can see the processing talent, and that he added that he never felt that he saw Rattler panic, which agree to disagree. But again, you get an A for not being negative about a rookie quarterback that really Bob said at the beginning of the year, if Rattler had to start multiple games this year, something went horribly wrong. And yeah, things went horribly wrong. Injuries happened. He should not have started any of those games. But he didn't throw him under the bus. So A+ there. So Dennis Allen, your grade after those few A's there at the end are still an F. Congratulations. You flunked. Congratulations again. And then just a tweet that I thought was funny, so I'll throw out there. Pertaining to Mickey Loomis and quarterbacks, is that the best thing that Mickey Loomis has done the last 5 years is get outbid by the Cleveland Browns for Deshaun Watson. That made me laugh.
Yeah.
Also, we were talking about unattractive jobs. Cleveland, I know, doesn't necessarily have like an opening right now, but you want to talk about places that you probably don't want to be. How awkward is that as a head coach to get that news last week that Deshaun Watson retore his Achilles? It's like, okay, well, we benched Jameis at the end of the year for DTR, and DTR didn't play particularly well. Jameis is a free agent, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so.
So it's going to be like, well, what do you do? Because we're kind of hoping that maybe Deshaun would get some of the season, and now he's going to miss all of next year, and potentially that could be career-ending. You really have to kind of consider it at this point. Which take away all of the, how I want to say this nicely, take away all the mess that he got himself into off the field. If you wanted to take just that out of his story arc in general, the fall off of Deshaun Watson is remarkable, because he went from being a guy that was like a top 5 quarterback in football, and that Monday, and you know exactly what I'm talking about, that first game Monday night in New Orleans in 2019 will go down as one of the best quarterback duels to start a season ever. Like, some of the throws both Deshaun and Drew were making were unreal. We're not that far removed from that. And this
No.
11 games, got guaranteed $200 million, and might never play football again. It's incredible. But yeah.
Well, you say incredible. I say karma with a big smile on my face.
Oh yeah. Well, yes, absolutely. I was trying not to go there, but yes, you're absolutely right. And it's just like it is. Well, you can even throw the karma in there if you wanted to exclude all of the legal stuff. Remember, he quit on Houston and sat out an entire year. Like, there's karma for that too. I mean, it takes some big family jewels to say, you know what, I'm going to bet on myself so much. Like, I don't want to play for you. I'm just going to stay home.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to pay me millions and millions of dollars. Unreal. Well, with that, Bob, real quick, we'll preview some playoffs before we get out of here. The wild card games, for the most part, pretty awful.
Yeah.
One of the worst wild card weekends I can remember.
Yeah.
History.
Now, I will say I told you so about the Minnesota Vikings over the last 2 weeks. They were exposed for the Sam Darnolds that they are. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I thought Tampa Bay, Washington was very entertaining, and I called the Washington win. But yeah, everything else, it was kind of easy to see coming.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. Look, what you said earlier is absolutely true. Sam Darnold, the last 2 weeks, like, you want to talk about a guy who picked the wrong time to revert back? Like, that guy was in for a huge payday. Now, I'm sure he'll still get paid.
I still think he will be.
But these last 2 games probably left a few $1 million on the
table. Mm-hmm.
Or there's going to be some teams that are, like, not as if he was number 1 on their boards, he may be like 1B or 2. Like, I don't think teams are going to flock towards it because it was like, okay, well, you played a playoff game and you were seeing ghosts again, right? Like, let's not forget, like, that is his quote, right? Like, I'm not just imagining things. I'm not seeing ghosts, right? Like, that is his quote, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know if I ever want a quarterback leading my team that, like, publicly said that. It's humorous, right? If you take some of the seriousness out of football, it is humorous to hear someone say, if they're in, like, high school, right? If they're in a JUCO, if they're playing FCS football, and I mean that it's like, if I had somebody who was playing at Georgia say that, Alabama, I'd have some concerns in the draft process.
Mm-hmm.
If someone from North Dakota State said that, it's a little funny. But there's not a lot of guys, like North Dakota State guys, right? Trey Lance, he might have been South Dakota State. He was one of the Dakota States. And then
didn't Carson Wentz play at one?
Those are the only 2 that come to mind. I'm like, okay, well, like, one of those guys said it. It's not affecting their draft stock, so it is what it is. But seeing ghosts, yeah. So that Pittsburgh found their way in the playoffs somehow, and quickly were reminded why they didn't belong in the playoffs. Baltimore's a weird team for me. Again,
Mm-hmm.
It's probably like a 3rd or 4th year in a row where I think Baltimore's a weird team because they're not conventional to the modern day NFL offense. Like, they're very run heavy, right? And they're very reliant on Derrick Henry, very reliant on Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson should probably win the MVP this year. But
agree to disagree.
But the thing with Lamar Jackson has continued to be the thing that was the biggest knock on him in coming out of college was average to below average arm talent, incredible athlete, but can he make the big throws in the cold in the playoffs? And he hasn't proven he can do that.
Nope.
Now, it helps you have Derrick Henry, who is a massive human being that I'm going to be honest, I'm really surprised that Derrick Henry's success has lasted this long. Not because he's not because of him or lack thereof his abilities. He's a stellar athlete, Hall of Fame running back. But it's because he's that big and the amount of hits that he's taken in his career, the fact that he has lasted this long and not had a ton of time missed is a little mind-boggling to me. So with all that said, I'm like, I don't know about Baltimore. Like, I don't know where they fit into it. Buffalo's fun. They've been fun. I like Josh Allen. Josh Allen, I played against Gardner Webb back in college, so it's always cool to see things like that. especially when I was calling games at the time. But he's a guy where it's like, he's like a really fun regular season guy. And then I get to the playoffs, I'm like, do I really love Josh Allen to come out of the NFC? I don't know. I look at the Kansas City Chiefs and I go, okay, they're looking for the three-peat. Nothing they did this year was convincing. They won a lot of games by one score, but they found ways to win, and there is something to be said for that. So the AFC, I have no idea. The NFC, I still really like Detroit, and I think Detroit's the team to beat in the NFC.
AFC, you do have an idea. You just don't want to come out and say it, so I will.
Nope. I have no idea.
You do. Roger Goodell. Who's the commissioner? Is it still Roger Goodell?
Unfortunately.
Then you have your answer out of the AFC.
The Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mahomes going to find it.
He is. Now, we all know that corrupt Goodell is about the storyline. So maybe it is time for the Buffalo Bills to break through and maybe break their Super Bowl jinx. But until proven otherwise, and don't get me wrong, Andy Reid, Hall of Fame coach, Patrick Mahomes, not the greatest quarterback ever, but a Hall of Fame player, and a good defense. So, I mean, Kansas City is not devoid of all talent by no means. But again, as long as Roger Goodell is the commissioner, and we know that egomaniac likes to say, oh, this happened under my tenure, that happened under my tenure. Has there ever been a three-peat Super Bowl champion? No. Under a Roger Goodell tenure? Maybe. Out of the NFC, I'm with you. I still like Detroit. Philadelphia's roster is going to present a major challenge if Jalen Hurts is throwing like he has the yips right now. He's in a slump as a passer. If he breaks out of that slump, Philadelphia could very well beat, knock off Detroit. But Detroit has the coaching. They have the offensive weapons. They're going to get David Montgomery back, and they're starting to get healthy on defense. I don't know when Aiden Hutchinson is due to come back, but if it's going to be during the playoffs, I don't see how you can't favor Detroit. Washington's a fun team, and they'll hang in there. In their game, at the Lions. The Rams. We know that they're young and aggressive defensively, and we know Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, they're going to put up numbers offensively. I don't see them going to Eastern Pennsylvania in the elements, and pulling out a win. So I have a Philadelphia-Detroit NFC Championship. Wouldn't surprise me if Houston hung around Kansas City for a couple quarters. But yeah, again, for all the reasons that I mentioned before, Kansas City is going to win that one. And I think I think Buffalo is going to beat Baltimore for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned. A lot of the reasons why people continue to have questions about Lamar Jackson, as far as being an elite all-time talent, is his failures in the playoffs. So until Lamar proves otherwise, if I'm at Buffalo, I'm going to stack the box to stop Derrick Henry and make Lamar Jackson beat me, and make him do it with his arm. And I know the Ravens defense has been playing better, and John Harbaugh's one hell of a playoff coach. But I think Buffalo is playing better, slightly better than Baltimore right now. So I think it's going to be a Buffalo-Kansas City rematch in the AFC Championship.
That would be fun. It would be a lot of fun. I would like to see Lamar kind of break that, kind of break free of the he can't win the game, where he doesn't come up big in the playoffs. Just because my biggest knock on Lamar was, just like everybody else, was the arm talent. But he's the most electric quarterback I've seen since Michael Vick. Now, Vick had a lot more arm talent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Vic could throw the length of the football field. Couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, but could throw the length of a football field.
That's exactly right. But Vic got to the NFC title game.
Yeah.
You know, so I'd like to see Lamar at least get that chance. But the other thing with the Ravens, and it's always been, is it's kind of the catch-22 is like, well, Lamar hasn't shown the ability to win a game with his arm in the playoffs, but it's not like Baltimore's ever really given him receivers to throw to. So it's like this catch-22 of like, well, do they kind of have something to do with each other? Yes, but can we at least get some receivers to see if it can actually work? But I think you're ultimately right. I think it's going to be Kansas City Buffalo, which will be a lot of fun because this Allen Mahomes, it's not really a rivalry, but we've had a lot of entertaining games. I just feel like you'd be in for another one.
Yeah, just mute the TV so that way I don't have to listen to an orgasmic Tony Romo.
You don't like Tony. I don't hate Tony.
I loathe Tony Romo.
I don't hate Tony Romo. I could not stand Tom Brady this year.
No.
I really didn't think Brady was that good.
No, and neither of them are quite as bad as Chris Collinsworth, but
Chris is so difficult to watch and listen to at this point. It's almost humorous. It's like a meme. It's like a meme that has finally got old enough to where it's like it's not annoying anymore. That's kind of where I'm at with Collinsworth. So I'm cool. We're good.
Fair.
On the other side with the NFC, Jalen Hurts scares me because of everything you said, right? He's not playing it's going to sound bad. He's not playing like the Jalen Hurts that we've come to know and love the last couple years. And even through the regular season, Hurts didn't look like the Jalen Hurts that took this team to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Saquon has been outstanding. And good for Saquon for sticking a middle finger right in the face of the New York Giants for that debacle of not retaining Saquon Barkley. And the fact that it was all on Hard Knocks and everything makes it 100 times better. So good for Saquon. I do think the Eagles ultimately advanced. The Commanders are a fun team. They're a very young team. They're ahead of schedule. I don't like saying that. I think that's a stupid thing. Whether you're on schedule, ahead of schedule. But in reality, this roster is not constructed around the strengths of Jaden Daniels right now to let him go on a long playoff run. So with that, they are ahead of schedule. Detroit has built and fought and has found their way to where they are now. And constructed a roster that is built to go win the Super Bowl. So I think that's the ultimate matchup that you get. And I think it'll be fun. I think this week will be a lot more entertaining football across the board.
I agree.
There just being one good game. So I hope you guys ultimately all enjoy that. Bob, you already alluded to it. You got articles coming out. There's no off season for Saints News Network. There's no off season for you or John or Kyle. You guys are still producing great content when it comes to the New Orleans Saints. And as this head coaching search kind of continues and eventually comes to an end and a new coach is hired, there's just going to be a lot of editorials, a lot of opinion pieces. I think that's going to be the big one this offseason. A lot of opinion pieces and roundtables and, just different ideas on why guys should or should not be the coach or why it was a good hire, why it wasn't a good hire. All the way down to I know you, because you're going to get the draft profiles and go, well, this guy fits this new coach's system, or these agents really fit this new head coach's system. So there's a lot of great stuff that you're going to have coming out soon. Everybody who's here every week should already follow you and read your articles on a daily basis. But I know there's a couple that are either watching this live, listening back on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Red Circle or wherever. That is the first time they're hearing you and I talk. So where can people keep up with you, keep up with your work, keep up with your articles with the Saints News Network on SI.com?
Yeah, and like you said, if you're watching or listening to us for the first time, thank you. And make sure you catch our past shows too. And if you do already follow me and follow my work and our work at the Saints News Network, pass our work, pass our names, pass how to follow us around to other Saints fans, please. We're trying to make a living here. Um, and like you said, Brendan, and Alan and I said it on Under the Dome last night. I know some people want to talk about free agency, the draft, mock drafts, potential draft targets. The fact is that it's so difficult. It's next to impossible to project any of that right now until we know who the Saints coach is going to be. So, yeah, we're going to do a little bit of it, and I have my, I have my draft analysis piling up, from film that I have been watching already for the last couple of months, and we're going to be doing those and picking away slowly at it. But the main news is going to be the coach. Coaching news until a hire finally happens. But in the meantime, you can follow all of those works on my personal pages, Bob Rose Facebook, at Bobby R 2613 on the X Twitter. All of us, myself, John Hendricks, Kyle T. Mosley, can be followed at the Saints News Network, at Saints News on X Twitter, or the SI.com team page. So make sure that you give those a follow and those articles a read as well. And if you're not already following the Bayou Blitz Facebook group or Bayou Blitz Twitter page, please do so. And if you are following, please get others involved, preferably Saints fans, but just NFL fans in general, to those two pages. Shireen, if you're watching, if you're listening, I meant to reach out to you to find out if there are still any openings on the Go Black and Gold Celebrity Fan Cruise, Charity Fan Cruise, excuse me. That's why that's why we did not do a read tonight, because I don't know if there are still spots open. But if you guys are interested, it is the 11th annual Go Black and Gold Celebrity Charity Fan Cruise. We do put postings on that on our pages, Brendan and mine, as well as our Bayou Blitz Facebook page. And as soon as I talk to Shireen and confirm whether there are still spots available to this great event that features the ultimate fan experience with 6 former Saints legends, all 6 of whom have been on our show before. We will have them on again. They're going to be part of this cruise. So, not only is it going to be just a terrific fan experience, but the proceeds benefit the Get Checked or Check Out Foundation, which is a great charity in and of itself. So check all those things out.
For myself, you can follow me on X, Twitter, and Instagram at BT Boylan. Shout out to DJ Philco79 and Jerry. Thanks for tuning in and saying thanks. Great stream. Appreciate you guys tuning in with us this week. Bob, it's going to be one of those off seasons, isn't it? I feel like we're going to have a lot of episodes like this where it is a lot of ranting, a lot of nitpicking, as I said. But overall, some good, semi-clean fun. Can't even say clean. Semi-clean fun. Excited to eventually, I know we talked about doing it this week. This weekend was a little crazy for me. I explained to Bob a little bit of it before we got on. But can't wait to get some of you guys on to actually be on screen with us and chat it up about different things. I think it'll be fun through the draft process as well, to open the floor for different prospects, or who are you guys thinking here? Who you guys thinking there? So we can't wait to get you guys a little bit more involved in this. Thank you guys for tuning in, hanging out. I know it's a little bit later than normal, but we certainly appreciate it. So until next time, we may get on for playoff football Sunday. It may be live, it may be recorded. You guys can catch it later, but make sure you tune in to the Bayou Blitz on Twitter, and Facebook to figure out when and where you can hear from us this weekend. So until then, hope you guys find some peace, spread love, practice positivity, and we'll see you later for another edition of the Bayou Blitz podcast. Good night.